evening, a good afternoon, a good morning, Formula One fans from wherever you are watching around the world, and welcome to Fans Forum, the place where we put you guys in pole position, front and center of the conversation within this forum. So, of course, we will be discussing the latest news out of the world of Formula One, but we want you to drive things, all right? So whatever you want to get into with me and my VIP co-host, Phil, free, because obviously it's March. The cars have gone wheel to wheel somewhat back on circuit via testing, so we'll be looking at that. Drive to Survive is literally just a few days away from the new series, and we're going to talk about what we're looking forward to seeing behind the scenes. And this time, in 2 weeks' time, we will just be calming down from the first Grand Prix of the season in Melbourne. I absolutely cannot wait. And to get into all of that and more, today's VIP co-host is none other than the man himself from Race Talk F1, Jay Knox. Jay, my man, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, man. And thank you so much for having me, man.
It's a pleasure, mate. I cannot wait to get into it. First question. How has your off season been? Have you been able to recuperate from the world of Formula One?
It's been all right. It's been all right. It's been cool. Been chilling out a little bit. But at the same time, there's so much other stuff going on. Football, Super Bowl, it's just like loads. And so it's like I'm just in my head's going crazy. I'm in everything. So yeah, it's been chilled, but not that chilled, if you know what I mean.
Chilled from a motorsport perspective, but lots of other avenues going on that we like to hear. We won't mention our South London rivalry that we have for opposing football teams. We'll leave it at that, and people watching can do their own research on who we are representing. But listen, mate, first and foremost, let's get into it. Where did your love affair with F1 begin?
From young, really. Like it's my dad. It's my dad that's brought me into it. It's like obviously I love football. But my thing was always Formula One in my house. My dad, it was always that. It was back in the days of like Schumacher at Benetton and Damon Hill and Fittipaldi. It was just like that. That was the era that I kind of started watching. It was I probably just missed the Senna era. Really, it was I was there, but I was young, man. So I came like a little bit around that sort of time, just after that. And it was on. It was just on a Sunday. It was on. That was it. So
I think
it wasn't.
The younger fans, they forget that before the Premier League become this huge entity that it is now, football was all about a Saturday, wasn't it, in the UK? And like you're saying, Sunday was Grand Prix day in my house as well. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that, right? But there was also like we could only do what we could do, innit? So my dad, we were never going to any games like for football. So it was that, and the Premier League weren't on telly like that. I didn't have all the Sky and cable and all of that stuff. Like, things were limited in my house. So it was like the F1 was on TV. Like you could see it on normal television.
It was free on BBC. Murray Walker.
There you go. The legend that is. Do you know what I mean? And will always be Murray. That voice, man. Like, and that's what it's been my whole life. Kind of growing up, it was that voice. So he was Formula One for me, man.
Listen, bro, we're going to talk about testing and what went down across the 3 days in Bahrain as teams begin to showcase a little bit of performance, but we have to kind of say that with a caveat, don't we? But what kind of fan are you? So when it comes to testing, are you an every hour of every session man? Is it a highlights package at the end of the day? Or are you kind of like, let me just look at the stopwatch and I'll get into it properly for FP1 in Australia?
Oh man, I hope the purists don't mind, but I'm a highlights man. You know what I mean? And that's just lifestyle. That's just lifestyle. Look, don't get me wrong. If I could sit there and really monitor it, even I have this problem when the races are on. I've said this. Anyone who watches Race Talk F1 will know. Like, you always have to ask me, where did you watch the race? Like, where were you? Were you about? Were you in the? Because I'm a DJ, so I'm in the clubs a lot, and it's like, were you in the club? Did you see it live? And towards the back end of last season, I managed to see a lot more stuff live. And if you can watch things like by the second, by the minute, it's great. But realistically, for testing, it's been a let's catch up. And then it's like this whole, like the last couple of days, it's just been like trying to take in, digest. I've also got an awful memory, so I'll be like, hold on a second, what happened? I got to go back and rewatch stuff. Even in like season time, it's like I have to watch the race, and I'm like sick, and then I've got to go watch the highlights and be like, I don't remember that bit. So when you watch a film and you've seen it like 3 times, Mission Impossible, you've seen it before, watch it
Yeah.
again, and it's like I don't remember he did that, and it's like I'm one of those people. So I'm always like constantly catching up again and again and again and again. So yeah, that's the kind of fan I am, a forgetful one, but one that can watch it again and again.
Yeah, I love that. I know both of us do some work at F1 Arcade, right? And I'm sure you can empathise that when you're in the zone working, I was going to align us almost with being a racing driver, but I was going to say that you're flying by the seat of your pants, and you literally almost have to go back and re-watch the race, don't you? Because you're there working in the moment with the fan engagement, and then you're like, what happened? Who won? I was just being gassed at the time and keeping the energy up for the crowd.
This is exactly what it is. Obviously, you see, it's like sometimes I do F1 drive as well, and it's like no matter where you are, it's like you're constantly monitoring what's going on. So yeah, to get a bit more into it, it's nice to watch a race at home where I can just like be fully in the zone, and even then, you know, got to watch things back.
Well, listen, man, let's get into what went down across the 3 days. And it brings me on to a comment we got from Daryl in here just saying, sandbag, sandbag. Look at the last 10 years. The fastest in testing has not been champion. But we're going to start with who was fastest in testing, because you look at the stopwatch, don't you, as an F1 fan? And Carlos Sainz, I mean, he's come and he's delivered. He said he wanted to put Williams back on top, and he's there top of the timesheet across the 3 days. What have you made of Carlos Sainz, not only in the Williams, Jay, but also he's been like a man possessed since he's known that he was kicked out of his seat at Ferrari, right?
Yeah, look, like Carlos has been a bit of a madman. I haven't been able to put my finger on exactly how he's feeling, and I feel like he's gone on a mad roller coaster of emotions over the past like season, because it's been the whole season. Like this is how he started his season, so this has been it. It's been a year, and he's been knowing that it ain't gonna be this next year, right? And I think he's gone through like anger, and then probably some. I'm not even that bothered. You know what? Like, forget them. Like I can't believe it. Like, I'm like him and Shah. Like, he's probably been thinking, why me? Like, it shouldn't be me. I've been winning races. I've done this. I've got a good history. And I think it's just a bit unfortunate, to be honest. And then I think he's probably gone down the route of, no, do you know what? I'm going to show them what they're missing and what they're losing. I'm going to make them regret it. And I feel like there's been a lot of that energy. And because it's been so volatile for him, like, I think we've had a great season watching Carlos. I've enjoyed watching Carlos the whole season, because you don't really know what Carlos you're going to get. The Carlos that's going out there, the Carlos that's angry, or the Carlos that's just focusing on him and maybe trying to find a seat for next season. Like, you just don't know what's going through his head. So, yeah, you like it. And there's a little bit of like, well, do you know what? I ain't got to be mad respectful no more, because so what? What are you going to do? Like, not sit me in a seat next year? I already know what it is. So I think we've had a bit of that. It's been good, but it's been he's really carried it all the way through to the end. He's really driven his absolute best, I believe, and then that's what we want to see in it. So I've been liking watching Carlos.
Yeah, Richie Smith says he's had a great end to his Ferrari career and some of his best races. Of course, a 4-time race winner now, Carlos Sainz, and he thinks he'll continue that momentum at Williams. He himself, though, has played it down a little bit. He's come out and actually said that he doesn't think there'll be any podiums or top fives for Williams in the 2025 season. But it only takes one anomaly, doesn't it? If you look at what happened in Brazil with the double Alpine podium, they just need to be ready to pounce on opportunity. Not only Carlos Sainz, but also Alex Albon. Do you think that this partnership is going to be good for him, Jay? What are you expecting from Alex? Because possibly, although he was carrying the team for the last few seasons, now he's got some serious competition alongside him in the garage, hasn't he?
Yeah, like he's gonna know that he's number two. Like even whether
Oh,
it's
you think?
intention, yeah, bro. Like
Wow.
he's gonna know because he look like Carlos has come from Ferrari. He's been winning races, so like there's no way that ain't in his head. Even if like contractually or like whispering in his ear, don't worry, Alex, we've got you. You've been with us
Mm.
for a long time. Like he knows that he's number two, and if he doesn't know he's number two, he knows that a lot of the fans, he knows that I'm sitting here saying that he's number two. But I think what that's going to mean is he's going to be trying to step up. So I'm excited to see a lot from Alex Albon this season because he knows that he's stepping up a level. And to be honest, it ain't just him, it's the team. Like I've been watching like Williams over like the past year, and I feel like it's been the team that's harnessing some potential. I feel like they've been messing things up to get it right this season. I feel like we've had a bit of that, and I think Carlos has probably seen that as well and sees the potential in them. Like I love the principle. You feel like he knows what he's doing. Like I feel like they're harnessing something. And whoever said sandbag, sandbag, sandbag earlier, I'm like, well, yeah, like we're never gonna know in testing. It's another reason why I'm a highlights fan.
Yeah, too true. You're watching something, but it isn't a real representation of performance. We don't know kind of what engine mode the cars are in. We don't know what fuel loads they've got. And it was interesting that certain cars and drivers at certain points would have like a blistering sector one and then just cool it down for the rest of the lap, or similarly a
You've seen enough.
blistering. Yeah, like it's brilliant, and then it's so enticing for the beginning of the season. But for you, Jay, Williams next year, do you think they will be looking to improve on that P9 position, which was a drop of 2 in the constructors from 2023? They've got to be looking a little bit higher than that, like you said, with the investment that's gone into the team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they've got. I think like feel like they play things. I mean, I know everyone plays things down, but I definitely feel like they've got some high hopes. I think Mr. Vowles. I think there's a quiet confidence there, and I think that they're never gonna tell us, come out and say we're looking to do this, we're looking to do that. But I think they're looking to make some waves, and I feel like the same way who did we see last season, sort of just like was like an outlier. It
Haas
started to
did
come.
very well, didn't they? They come
There
from
you
nowhere, they
go.
come from almost the bottom of the grid, and we'll talk about them
Right.
in a little while about their improvement over last year and also hopefully this year from their perspective.
There you go. That's the vibe I think that they're coming with. But I feel like there's a quiet confidence with Williams, and I'm excited to see them. Like I think they'll be up in the mix in certain races. They're not
Mm.
gonna ace the season, but I think they've probably learned a lot over the past year. And with an amazing driver like Carlos joining the team, I think yeah, it really steps them up a level that way as well.
Well, I also want a big shout out to Alex Albon, because it seems that Jay's doing him a little bit dirty, and hopefully he can step up alongside Carlos Sainz for the 2025 season. Next up, Jay, let's talk a little bit about the Scuderia Ferrari,
Mm.
right? We know where
Jeez.
all the focus and attention is. Looking at the visual on screen now, the iconic yellow helmet with that scarlet red of the Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton, number 44. But I don't want to start with Lewis. I want to start on the other side of the garage, because Charles Leclerc seems quite cool, calm, and collected. And possibly as a Ferrari driver, has had his most relaxing off season in the shadow of everything else that's going on. What could that mean for Charles' performance this season?
Like Charles, he's a chilled guy, isn't he? So I feel like he's probably really enjoying this. Like he's able to just maneuver, like you said, in the shadows. Like he doesn't have to flex. He doesn't have to tell anybody what he's going to achieve this year. Like if you compare it to what I was just talking about with Alex Albon, I feel like Alex Albon's going to be coming into this thinking, I've got a point to prove. I've got to step up. I don't think Charles thinking like that. I think he's thinking like, I've been driving a Ferrari, won at Monaco. I know what I'm doing. Like this is my house.
Mm.
Like, and Lewis, you're coming into it. It's cool. And I think I just don't feel like he's gonna feel threatened. I just feel like he's enjoying this time and just really looking forward to getting back into racing. And I think he's if you look at him and Carlos, right, last season, like you've got two drivers in the team doing really, really well. And there's so many races I watched and I was like, it could be Carlos, it could be Sharp. Like it could be either or. You know, when anyone that clocked like one of our early episodes of Race Talk F1 when we was talking about it, I was kind of fighting Carlos's corner saying, no, he should have stayed. He should have stayed. And then, I was told the cream will rise to the top, and that's Shah. But it was like that. So I think Shah's very used to this kind of relationship and this kind of dynamic in the team. And so because of that, I think he's chilled. I think he's enjoying his time off and he's now back and he's just going to take this in his stride, which is going to make Ferrari as a team super strong, but it's going to make it interesting driver for driver.
Yeah, there's gonna be it'll be interesting to see how they get on, and I know that they've been trying to speak a lot about the car and their feedback with one another. I saw an interview with Lewis, and he was saying that when we get the opportunity, we've been sharing feedback, but when one's on circuit, the other's doing PR and lots of other stuff. But I wonder if that relationship will stay the deeper the season goes, depending on who's leading in the garage, because Lewis is used to performing and being number one. Charles, I mean, if he's struggling behind Lewis mid-season, is he going to want to share any hints and tips and tricks with a guy who's already beating him in what is his house, like you said?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Like you said, to see the dynamic 6, 7 races in, I think that's when we're really going to know what's going on, because the first couple races, they're going to keep it semi-respectful. Lewis is going to be like, cool, I'm new here. He's grown. He's let people know, look, I'm just gonna, I'm here, I'm mature, I'm whatever. But 4, 5, 6 races in, that kind of goes, it gets more competitive because you can see where it's going. And I think it's gonna be, I mean, look, Gary's making a point. I was thinking right now, like, what does the race engineer tell? What are we gonna hear over the radio? And who tells Lewis to like, yeah, fall back on this
Support
one, innit?
Charles.
Like, what? Do you know who you're talking to? Like, do you know what I'm here for?
Yeah. He's there for that 8th championship, right? But I saw an interesting comment, and it's saying about Lewis trying to play catch up to Charles. And you've got a guy who's been in the team 6 years, and Lewis has only been, it's not even 6 days, I don't think, for Lewis that he's had out on circuit with not just this year's car, but previous cars as well. So this actual new car he's only had for 1.5 days. It's madness.
A bit mad, isn't it? It's a bit mad. I think that does play a part. But this is why I think Shah is also like he's not threatened, he's confident. He's like, I've been driving this, I've been doing this, I know the team. Like there's a quiet confidence. I can't read, I can't see where it's gonna go.
Well, Rosie's made a point that it's a bromance, I would say, at the moment, Rosie, and all's nice and they're playing chess together. But as they always say, the one person you must beat in Formula One is your teammate, because it's the only person who has the same machinery as you. So that's the person you really are going toe to toe against. Let me just put you out on a limb then, Jay. If you had to say who's going to finish ahead of who, not necessarily saying the Drivers' Championship, who would you say as you sit here now, Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton?
What, in the first race or overall in the
overall across the season?
I'm going to go with Lewis because I know he's coming with like all of the energy. I know why he's come there. Do you know what I mean? But I don't say that lightly. I don't say it just because it's Lewis and of course he's gonna. No, I think, and if he is at the front at the end, if he is ahead, I don't think it will have been without a little bit of. I don't think that bromance. Is it Rosie? You said bromance.
Yeah.
I don't think Lewis finishes ahead of Shah without messing up that bromance, I'm afraid. So
Look
yeah.
what Daryl had to say. He's saying, hang on, I can see a Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton situation. And it is very similar, isn't it? Nico Rosberg was the kind of prince elect as he worked alongside Schumacher, and he was supposed to take over being number one in the team. And then he really got his nose somewhat put out of joint when they brought in Lewis Hamilton. And I imagine behind the scenes a little bit, Charles would have been like, okay, what does this mean for me? And there probably were some reassuring conversations required when the announcement was made.
Reassuring conversations. I think you put it nicely. I think you put it nicely. I think when the announcement came out, yeah, Shah probably was a bit like, what is going on? But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. That season with Nico and Lewis, didn't I think there were some incidents between the two of them. So maybe
Yeah,
that's what
right.
we're gonna see.
Incidents
There's
in the garage, on the circuit, everywhere. Eventually, in their contracts, they had to pay for damage to the car.
yeah,
That was the
if
only
they
way.
collid,
The only way
yeah, if
Toto
they
Wolff could get them to stop colliding was like, well, it's going to come out of your pocket. Luckily, this was pre-cost cap era. Who knows? Maybe we'll see
crazy.
that again. But listen,
You
bro, we could talk about Ferrari and the interest there for the whole hour, but we've got to move it forwards and talk about some other teams and their performance during testing. Let's move it forward to the Silver Arrows Mercedes, who had, I guess, what you'd call a pretty successful testing 3 days. So across the 3 days, George Russell was fourth fastest, and that symmetry is kind of nice because George is going for fourth time lucky on his performance at Mercedes because he must have thought to himself, brilliant. Okay, I'm getting the promotion into Mercedes after his stint at Williams. Here we go. My time has arrived, and he's not had a car to work with thus far.
I know it's been a bit. I mean, fourth time lucky for what? I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think him flexing at testing is almost trying to give himself the confidence boost that I think he needs to go into this season. But I think he's got a tough one, man. And yes, Mercedes are showing this car off, and yes, I think Mercedes will probably look pretty decent in the cooler weather, maybe. I don't know, man. But it's just a bit weird with Mercedes. It's like I've never seen this exact situation before where it's like performing better in this particular weather. I don't know, man. I think George is in for another really, really rough season. Like I think he's done this the best he can in testing, and I hope that gives him the confidence to go on to Melbourne. But I think he's got a tough one ahead of him, man.
And what about the other side of the garage then? Kimi Antonelli. Let's first take your opinions. When the announcement was made in the second seat of Mercedes for it to be Kimi Antonelli, there were some names touted around, such as Carlos Sainz, for example, who might have been upset he wasn't considered or given the opportunity. Antonelli, the youngest driver on the grid, covered fourth most laps, and Mercedes, in fact, did the most laps as a team across testing. So, like you said, they somewhat struggled to understand their car previously, and they wanted to make the most of this testing experience in Bahrain. What are your thoughts on Antonelli?
Yeah, like when the announcement came, I was like, cool. I was kind of expecting it, to be honest with you. We talked about it. I'd done some research. I thought it was probably going to be him. I don't even think he had a driving license at the time. Like that's
Yeah.
how mad it was. Do you know what I mean? It was like early, but you could kind of feel it happening. There was a moment like where I had a little bit of a wobble. Where I was thinking, no, do you know what? They might go for like a Carlos Sainz, like halfway through the season when Sainz still didn't have a seat. I was like, why would you not almost like go for Carlos? But
What do you think Toto was waiting for? Because do you think he was just enjoying keeping us all in suspense and he always knew, or do you think there was a lot happening behind the scenes?
no, I think he always wanted to, but I think he was like umming and ahhing because this is how I in my head how it went. He's umming and ahhing because he didn't have the car. And Toto, if I read him correctly, his focus would have been the car. We need to get the car right. We need to get the car right. And Kimi can come and race in a good car, but he's not the guy that you want to bring in to when you're just in absolute bits when it comes to the car. So
Yeah.
so
I guess
I think that
do you know what? It's almost not dissimilar. Do you remember when Red Bull were had a conveyor belt of drivers in the second seat between Gasly and Albon, and because Ricardo had left, and it was a very difficult car for anyone to drive, it seemed. And then, of course, Perez had this little stint in it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if the machine is not there, then whoever's in that second seat, it's really going to highlight. I don't want to say their inadequacies, but it's really going to highlight whether ultimately they are a top driver.
yeah, and I think that's where like look, Toto knows that he can fill that seat. Like he knows that he can. He's at Mercedes. Like he knows that he could lean into certain places. I know that he probably feels that. So I don't think I think he was always confident he would have a great driver. But yeah, like to
Some
give
people in the
Antonelli a
chat box.
chance is big.
Here we go. Interestingly, in the chat box are both Daryl and Felix making noises about, is there something in the fact that Bottas has been brought back in? What do you think
Mm.
of that? So are we saying that Bottas could be waiting in the wings for a return to the number 2 seat?
Well, like why not? Like I think he's an insanely great driver. If we think about how Bottas qualifies, like he can drive. He can drive very well. I think qualifying he's been his strong point. And Mercedes need some points, man. So so yeah, I'm glad to see him in the garage. I think it's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of Silver Arrows fans or fans of Formula One commenting on the Silver Arrows. We got Charlie Mack saying, I hope he's able to achieve what Toto has been going on about for his own sake. Gary saying he looks good in testing. And then, yeah, to Felix is fully agreeing with Daryl as well. Charlie Mack, another one from you, Charlie. Is George Russell going to call for team orders now that he is number 1 driver, to start throwing his weight around? He seems quite nice
Fully.
as a big brother at the moment, but you think he's going to get pretty selfish pretty quickly, Jay?
George George has got a little streak, man. George has got a streak. You can do that whole Big Brother thing, but George has got a streak, and if he's not winning, George is a sort of I get the vibe. He will do whatever he can do, and
Mm.
he's gonna throw his weight around, partly because he couldn't with Lewis. And there was a point where it's like he almost tried, but you just couldn't. He couldn't outdrive him. He couldn't outshadow him. He like, they even told him, I'm sure at some point, don't worry, George, you're number 1. Lewis is leaving. We're gonna focus on you. And but you saw the relationship for me like dissolve a little bit between Lewis and George, because George was just about George and he was just not getting it right. He just weren't getting it right. They weren't getting the car right. And now he is like number 1 and he doesn't have to be in anyone's shadow. He's literally number 1 on paper and like realistically, because Kimi hasn't got any record like that. I think he's going to be saying, guys, you need to like guarantee me, like whatever we need to do, whoever we need to move out the way. Like I think he's got a little streak that we're about to see it.
George Russell in the lead role at Mercedes. Sounds like it could be tasty as long as everything keeps going his way. And a lot of fans in the chat box seem to agree with that as well, Jay. But listen, let's move it forwards and take a look and analyze Red Bull's performance across testing, across the 3 days. And that's a visual you're seeing on the screen now. Liam Lawson in the senior team, who was one of only a couple of significant spins across testing, but another of them was Max Verstappen. So I don't want to read too much into it that Liam Lawson can't handle the Red Bull. This is the RB21 now, I think, that they're racing in. Max, it could be about just pushing it to the limits, couldn't it? And I mean, if Max is doing it, then why shouldn't Liam do it? For you, Jay, Liam Lawson in the second seat. Let's talk a little bit about him, and more importantly, what's the expectation of him this year? Is it regular points? Is it podiums? Can you see him getting race wins? Where does he stand for you?
For me, he is okay. So I think the point is to get some points. I don't think there's mad pressure on him to get podiums. I actually think this is one of the hardest seats to sit in because you can't do too badly and you can't do too well. Like this is a bit mad, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, you start. Liam Lawson turns up, starts getting race wins. Like, what do you think you're doing, bro? Like, that ain't what you. It's not what you're here for.
Mm.
Do you know what I'm
And
saying? And you compare it
do
to.
you reckon that would come from the team or Jos Verstappen?
You know who it's coming from. You know exactly who it's
Yeah.
coming from. It's not the way it's meant to go. And you want to know about throwing weight around the garage, then someone knows how to throw it around to the absolute max at Red Bull. And we know who it is. But I think it's a difficult seat. But I also think like it's also a difficult team to be in because you've got Kimi doing all of these laps, just getting used to the Mercedes and all the experience in the world. And you kind of get the feeling that Red Bull are letting like Lawson out there, and it's like, yeah, cool, that's enough, that's enough, that's
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, he got
I
no
think,
time in the car on the third day, right?
yeah,
And I know Max generally likes to do that, and you just have to accept it.
yeah. So I feel like it's a real hard place to come in and have your rookie season in that seat. And like I said, it's like you have to sit in a perfect position. You have to get enough points to make sure that the team is on for the
Mm.
constructors, but you can't do too well, bro.
That Charlie's saying he's ready to see what he's got to deliver, Liam Lawson, and he wants him to challenge Verstappen. The one point I will make, and I feel like the Red Bull Academy almost a little bit has lost its way, this junior team that they've got as well. Because remember, Lawson was overlooked for a seat at Toro Rosso by Nick De Vries. And look how where the stock of Nick De Vries now sits in the world of motorsport. That isn't me knocking him, but what I mean is, how did that happen? And then how has he then managed to usurp Yuki Tsunoda for that second seat?
I'll tell you exactly how. Because in that seat, you can't do too badly and you can't do too well. Now, Yuki in that seat is what I wanted. That's
Mm.
what I wanted. I thought he think he deserves it. I want to see him drive that car, and I don't like it when you say like the academy thing's lost its way a little bit. You know, should Liam Lawson have been over there? I don't know, man. But what I do know is I think Yuki was overlooked because he'll do too well. He'll challenge Max, and you can't do that in
Interesting.
that team.
Interesting. All right. So four-time world
Oh,
champion, four-time world champion Max Verstappen. How do you think 2025 looks for him? Do you still think he can drag that Red Bull post Adrian Newey and his magic towards the podiums, race wins, drivers' championship? What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
yeah, I think he can. I think he's capable. And I think a lot of this comes down to this is going to come down to like the minute details, which is why we love F1. Like it comes down to the most minutest of details, and that's what it's going to be. Is it going to be a mistake? Is it going to be some amazing engineering at McLaren or at Mercedes that you know foils his plan? What is it going to be? Is it going to be a rookie that spins out and takes him out? What is it going to be? Because he can 100% challenge. He's an amazing driver. He knows nothing but driving. He's very competitive. He's one of the most competitive we've ever seen on the track. So can he? Is he going to be in for it? Gazillion percent. And I think you mentioned one point. You know, can he? You know, get another year consecutively? It would be amazing and stuff.
That would
You know,
equal Schumacher. So then we have to have conversations about the GOAT, don't we?
it's mad conversations still. It's mad conversations. But look, it's again, and it's Lewis and it's Max in these conversations that are taking these records from Schumacher and you know like pushing like Formula One to like another level. So yes, I see him challenging and I want him to challenge, but I want it to really be a challenge. I want there to be some real stiff competition.
So talking about the competition and setting benchmarks and standards, the team that did that last year, the second half of the season at least, was very much McLaren, wasn't it? But they've held quite a bit back, we feel, at testing. Fastest lap only saw them get P8 with Piastri, and then Norris down in P13. Although there was a blistering lap apparently that Norris pulled out of that was a fly in sector 1 and sector 2. And like you said, Jay, they then went, that's enough, Lando, because we don't want people looking at our cars too much. But also they said that they've improved that car literally across pretty much every element. Do you still think they're going to be the team to beat next year, Jay?
Yeah. Without a doubt, in my opinion, like they know that they should have maybe just done a little bit better last season. They're gonna be out for it. They're like it was there, but I just think they're gonna really struggle this season. But I think it's gonna be challenging for Lando this season, in particular. But yeah,
Is it because of what
interesting.
Charlie says here? Because Charlie's saying he's all here for Oscar. I've seen an interview of Oscar who says, I'm going for a driver's championship. So I guess we've got to go back to this bromance and harmony in the garage, Jay, that they've mentioned. And I've talked about it on pretty much every show so far. But papaya rules, what are they? And for you, how long do they stay in place across this season that's coming up?
There's no papaya rules at the beginning of this season, man, and it's only a matter of if they're I don't know. I don't even know, right? Here's the thing. I don't even know if Lando can throw his weight around like
Yeah, I
this
was going to say,
garage.
is Lando out and out quicker than Oscar Piastri? What do you think?
No, no,
Right.
not out and out. I think he's brilliant. I think he's a brilliant driver, but I think Oscar is also a brilliant driver. Now, there's like when you're driving these cars, like massively, this is about minerals. Some of these challenges, you know, when you see someone dive up the inside, it's like this is about bravery. It's about who's got the minerals not to pull out of a challenge or whatever it is. Oscar's just got something that you can't teach and you can't learn. Oscar's just got something. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know if Lando's got it to the same degree that Oscar has. And that's why, you know what? Oscar's gonna be a struggle for Lando to contain. You know when you say the first one you gotta beat your teammate? I think Lando might struggle this season, man.
So you feel that there's a certain ruthlessness that perhaps Lando is missing, and you feel that maybe Oscar, given the opportunity, might be able to deal with the likes of Max Verstappen differently?
Yeah, do you know what? I hadn't even thought about it like that, but yeah, like 100%. It's definitely that ruthlessness that he's got, and I want to see that. I think there was a point. I think there was a point when Max got stuck behind Oscar, like towards the end of last season, and it's like Max didn't have loads to go for, but at the same time, it's like Oscar weren't, you know, he weren't letting up easily, and he's got a sick car. The car's fast.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's gonna be. I feel sorry for the principal there, boy, who's got to make them decisions because this is one team where I don't think it would be right to just give Lando that green light just because it's Lando. Don't think that
But
happens.
yeah, I mean, the hierarchy there seems quite set, though. You've got Andrea Stella, and then not forgetting Zach Brown, who is a huge character himself. I can't imagine he's going to stand for any nonsense between the two drivers. I think they're still at a stage where they can't ultimately swing themselves around the garage, a la, I don't know, like, you know, people say Verstappen does at Red Bull, because I think they still answer to the hierarchy at McLaren. Felix is saying here that Oscar's going for the championship as hard as Lando. Charlie saying that Oscar learned from his mistakes last year and he will have a world championship before Lando Norris.
What a
Interesting,
statement. That's mad still.
controversial. Yeah.
But I
Well, we
can't
will
say that he's
see.
wrong. I
Yeah,
can't
we
say
will
that
see
I
this
think
year.
he's wrong. I
We will
feel
see this
like
year.
when it comes to the rules and that, like you said, I don't think they'll stand for any nonsense. Like McLaren have got a quick car and they're going to be wanting to go for this constructors. I think if Oscar is in front, he will remain in front. If Lando's in front, he will remain in front. I don't think there'll be the swapping of the cars that we've seen in the previous season. I think that's what it is, and don't mess it up. I think that's going to be the clear instruction. Don't mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, they're already bossing the constructors, but it would be amazing for them to win a drivers' championship as well. Off the top of my head, their last drivers' championship is Lewis Hamilton, isn't it? 2008 for McLaren. It's a long, long time ago. So 17 years on my quick maths. So they would love to do that. But we must remember the constructors is the most important one, which is why the garage must get on ultimately and work for the team. So McLaren's performance and the brilliance of that car could perhaps be their only downfall as the drivers work independently this season to try and secure a drivers' championship. But Jay, I want to turn our attention now to the Alpine team, who I saw some stuff with Pierre Gasly, and they seemed more positive, definitely than they did last season at the beginning when their car was overweight. They had a power unit that was inferior to the rest of the grid. They managed to have sorted out quite a few problems at Alpine, and they're developing off of a big upgrade that they brought mid-season last year, and they seem happy with that. And I guess for the moment, they're happy with the new driver pairing as well. So Gasly leading the way and Jack Doohan in the second seat. Although Franco Colapinto is waiting in the wings. What do you make of that dynamic?
Yeah, like Colapinto is probably who I expected to see. This one was like, okay, interesting. But I mean, Alpine as a team, I'm quite excited for them, man. I'm excited for them. I think they've kept the same chassis as last season.
Yeah,
Like,
that was the big up because it started overweight the car and they needed to bring a big upgrade. They did that, and under the cost cap era, they're saying, well, we're not going to start again. We'll use that and continue to develop the car from that platform.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it, innit? Like classic.
No,
Because
this is F1. No, this is F1. You have to constantly be fixing things. If you stand still, you are going backwards. So no, Jay, that is not correct.
I hear it. But you know what? They came forwards leaps and bounds. You talked about a 1-2 last season. Like, I wouldn't have predicted that. I wouldn't have predicted that.
Second, it was a
Was it second? It was a double. Sorry, double podium.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I meant. A double podium. Like, but I would never have put two Alpines on the podium. Like at the beginning of the season. Like,
yeah, but
it's just never.
that race was absolute carnage. There was rain
I
everywhere
hear
in
it.
Sao Paulo.
I
They
hear it.
almost cancelled qualifying, right? So it was a little bit of luck, and it did somewhat paper over the cracks a little bit, because if they didn't get those big points in Sao Paulo, I think that they would have finished lower than, because they finished P6
Yeah,
the
of
last
course.
few seasons. I think they would have finished a lot lower, and then maybe there would have been a bit more alarm bells at the team, possibly.
But this is a lot of ifs. If it was this, and if it hadn't rained, and if, but it did, and they did, and they've got the money, and they've got the upgrades. I'm really excited for them this season, man.
I've got to say, apology to Charlie. She's saying I'm a chick. She is my Charlie. I'm so sorry. I thought it was a friend of mine who is called Charlie Mack, and I was like, oh, it's great that Charlie's logged in, but we don't know each other, and you are a female, so I will apologise for that. It's great to have you tuned in with us, though, Charlie. So thank you so much, and your engagement in the show is much appreciated. The more females in motorsport and Formula One, the better, of course, with all of that girls on track action that's happening in and around all the sports series now. So thank you for your support here, Charlie. But to pull it back here to Alpine, Jay, Jack Doohan, is he under pressure immediately? Do the team have to be realistic because they are a midfield team?
Yeah, so I don't think he's under like the crazy pressure. Like we've got a few rookies, right? He's not one that's under mad pressure. But having said that, there ain't a seat in Formula One that is without the pressure, and he has somebody waiting in the wings who I thought was going to be in a seat at the beginning of this season, and I think that is the pressure that he will feel. But it's his to lose, man. The seat's his to lose.
Yeah, and Charlie is saying, well, she thinks that
There you go.
Colapinto will be coming in that seat ASAP. It's very popular, started very well at Williams, but it did fall off a little bit. And like you said earlier, Jay, that it's the finer details and the margins that make the difference in Formula One. I can't remember, someone said that there's an analogy about literally every lap and every race is like a moving target. So you can never really even get into that comfort zone. You know, and then they talk about that flow state. I guess muscle memory comes into it, knowing the track so well, but there's so many other factors happening every single lap that you're going around a circuit. So the rookies particularly is going to be a tough season, a tough baptism of fire for many of them. Even you think about Bortoleto had never even experienced an FP1 session, which is mental. Everybody else has at least been in an F1 car, and he hadn't in the real world until testing just gone. And we'll get into Sauber in a little bit, but before we do, let's touch base on the Red Bull Junior team. So the Red Bull Junior team, Jay, led by Yuki Tsunoda, of course. And again, the second seat there, Isaac Hadjar, a few eyebrows raised with that. What were your thoughts with him going into that second seat?
Weren't expecting it. I just think this whole team, I really don't know what to expect. There's nothing happening here that I expected. Like in this team, I expected Yuki to go. I don't know what I'm looking at the moment when it comes to the race symbols. I can't call it. I can't predict it. I didn't think Isaac was going to be in. There's so much going on there. Like even watching them in testing.
When I mentioned earlier saying I've lost what the purpose of it is, that's what I meant. Like you said, you can't call any decision that anyone's making. They've overlooked Yuki. I saw Lauren McKees say this week, Yuki still wants the second seat at Red Bull and we're going to help him get it. Now, that would not be released without people ticking and signing that off at Red Bull, right? Everything these guys say, there's literally a dictaphone next to them in every interview. They've read the PR sheet from their team, etc. So he's been allowed to say that. And why would they do that to Liam Lawson? It's mad.
Yeah, that's mad. Again, I told you that Liam Lawson seat is a mad seat to have because the pressure is always on, like too much almost. And Liam's gonna have to we're gonna see his character because there's gonna be a lot of pressure, like on the track and off the track. But I don't know, man. Like you said, I think they've said that, or he's been allowed to say that, just to keep Yuki a little bit sweet. Don't worry, Yuki, but they're dangling a carrot, man. Like you and me know what time it is right now. It's like they're not trying to put Yuki in that seat because they could have done it. So I'm not buying that from Mekis. I'm not.
Okay, well, Gary's saying that at least they've got the prettiest car. They win the best livery. And then back to Charlie, loving the engagement this evening. Thank you so much. And she's saying that second team should be banned. It's annoying. What are your thoughts on that, Jay? Well, in fact, because they've taken away, haven't they, the fastest lap now? Because what was happening strategically, you had the likes of Racing Bulls or even Haas, even though Haas aren't supposed to be a mini Ferrari team, but they were changing up their tyres and taking the fastest lap off of teams in the top 10 that were competing towards the top of the table. So do you think that junior teams should exist? Do you think it's a good thing for Formula One as a pathway, or do you think it gives teams an unfair advantage?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's all right, man. I don't like it. I mean, we are where we are. I kicked up a fuss maybe 3 years ago and just saying how like all the disadvantages. We are where we are now. Like it ain't gonna change. Like this, like they're here to stay. But no, it shouldn't be like this. And if it is gonna be like this, at least like I mean, there's an element to this, right? Where cool, if they are going to be two completely separate teams, then we shouldn't be looking at Yuki to go to the other one all the time. Because, yeah, do you know what? Like, smash it over here. But all that goes on in my head is, well, are they spending enough over here? Because is the money really going over there? And is the focus over there? And, you know, why has Horner got like a say over there? Like, it's just, there's all of that. But I loved the fact that Daniel Ricciardo like went and nicked a fastest lap, and you know on that last race like that he raced in. Like I like that, and I'm gutted. If I want gutted about one thing, I'm gutted to see this fastest lap point go. Like don't take that away, because I know they were doing it all strategically, but as the fans, like it's great to watch. It was great to watch Daniel Ricciardo race for something in that race, for example. I want to see someone who's not going to win the race, might not be getting on the podium. I want to see them like they might be like 12th on the grid or 11th on the grid. I want to see them race for something. I can still get a point. Yeah, man, go
Maybe.
for it.
I'll tell you what would be fun. What if they did like a fastest lap for the teams in the second 10? So, you know, like if you're in the top 10, you've got points somehow. So you don't race for that. But if they said 11th place to 20th, whoever gets the fastest lap there gets, imagine if they said gets 3 points. Imagine what that would do to the competition strategically in the second half of the grid. How
No,
much,
you couldn't do 3 points.
I
You
say
could
3
do.
points because I think you get 3 points for pole position in certain race series, but it would be because
Oh,
points
swear.
mean so much to the lower teams that there would be extra pit stops happening. There'd be so much more interest strategically.
Get me the FIA. Yeah, this is a good. I like this. This
Yeah.
is what this is about. Yeah, yeah. You're in for that. You're in for that one. You're
Nice.
in for
Okay.
that
Well,
one.
yeah,
I like
we'll,
that.
we'll get on the phone to Stefano Domenicali ASAP. Actually, no,
I
sorry,
said
he's the head of F1, so we'll have to start with him, and then he has to put it over to Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who's FIA, but they don't seem to
which
get on. Yeah, they're
which
not friends, all the different
he's
organisations.
more concerned about language than the bottom 10 earning points. To be
Yeah,
honest with
that's
you.
madness, isn't it? Imagine if we mic'd up footballers, some of the stuff that you would hear. But that's a conversation for another day, Jay. I want to move it forwards to look at the performance of Aston Martin across testing. So only managed P10 and P16. Lance Stroll doing only 133 laps. He was sick for the duration of was it he missed the whole of day 3, did he? And half of day 2? I can't remember, but he was out the car again. Not dissimilar to, was it last season or the season before? He broke his hand. So once again, not
Season
ideal.
before.
Yeah, not ideal preparation for Lance Stroll. And Aston Martin, not the performance wise, not seeming that quick.
Yeah, them not seeming that quick. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna try not to think too much into that because the more I thought about that, I just thought, what's going on? What's going on? This is like Newey. You've got the fact that they had some great. it's, it's Aston Newey, you know. Like this
Yeah.
is the thing. It was like there was a point last season though where I was like, do you know what? They could really be competitive. Like they had a few pockets, they had a few moments. And I thought with the the new recruit joining them, I thought, okay, cool. So I'm gonna try not to read too much into this, but
He
also
only started this month. So although it was announced last season, he only started work this March. He was put on gardening leave by Red Bull. So officially, he hasn't been able to work and be, as Daryl says, Team Adrian Newey. And Daryl's also saying he thinks that the Aston's going to come out like a rocket ship. I think for the
yeah,
point that Newey hasn't been there and personnel has been moving behind the scenes, maybe they're going to put their performance on its head because the last couple of seasons, they've started quite well, Aston, and then it's dropped away. I think this season could be the other way around. I think maybe it could be a little bit slow to start, but once Andy Cowell really gets into that team and does what he wants, and then you've got Newey coming in, that influence could be absolutely huge, couldn't it?
yeah, I do think that. I think you're pretty much spot on. I think, like I said, I saw signs of greatness, potential, like last season, but I just think that we might see some stuff. I don't think they're going to be doing anything absolutely insanely crazy, but I do think they're going to cause a problem for some of the other teams, and that's going to be, when you've got a McLaren on the track that needs to get to where it needs to get to, and then there's an Aston that it can't pass. I think that's what we're gonna see. I think those are the dramas we're gonna see, and it's gonna be like a frustration. It's like, oh my gosh, like they're not even going for the championship, but you just can't get past them. And I think that's what we're gonna see, like second half of the season.
Yeah, Gary's making a point that it's all about 26 and 27 for Aston Martin. So, yeah, they'll have that car that's fully designed by Newey. Cal will have really implemented his processes behind the scenes. And Fernando Alonso is going to have one final crack at it. And maybe Lance Stroll gets one extra year to show what he can really do in a car that should be towards the top of the grid. I know we're almost coming up to our hour. We haven't even got in through the whole grid and their performance in testing yet, Jay. So let's quickly push it forwards to the Haas. Now, Haas went as they do in testing under Ayo Komatsu, just plodded along, did their race plan, didn't pull up any trees, but they did pull up some trees when it comes to performance last season. P7, which I think was their best result since something like 2018, 2019. So he's quietly going about his business, the boss there. And one upgrade that I really liked, and it shows you how important the positions are to the smaller teams, their pit wall has doubled this season. So last season, they only had space for 3 engineers. They've now got space for 6. And it's lovely little stories like that that show you how important it is where you finish in the constructors. But what do you think of Haas for last year, Jay? And then more importantly, this year, the combination of Ocon and Behrman?
Yeah, I think Behrman is like under some pressure, to be honest with you. I think like I just because I don't know, I think there's a lot of high expectations. When you look at all of the rookies, I think of Behrman as like he's one that I think he's a lot of people are going to be looking at him to perform. So you've got that. Talk about your pit wall. Like I love stories like that as well. But it's also why when you have a big teams and junior teams, it makes it a little bit, it makes it. I want more stories like this. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing that you don't get when they're just like oh, they got all the money in the world. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one for the two of them, man.
Yeah, I hope they do well because, as we said, smaller team and trying to do all they can. And even bringing in Komatsu has got new interest from Japan. And I know that Toyota are getting involved with the team behind the scenes now to aid them with some kind of academy as well. So onwards and upwards for Haas. And Esteban Ocon, I think, is a good acquisition for them. He's a talented driver as long as he can keep his head. And again, it comes down to the dynamic in the garage, doesn't it? I think he's one of those that as long as the rookie doesn't overstep his place, all is good. But if Behrman starts to overperform, then an unhappy Esteban Ocon can be a problem in a race team, can't it?
I hear it. I do hear it. But I don't know, there's something about that Haas dynamic that just makes me feel like everything's gonna be all right. I feel like they'll work, and I just feel like the dynamic over there is right. I just feel like it is.
And just to end then, Jay, so bringing up the rear, unfortunately, it seems time-wise across testing, I think they were just ahead of Haas, weren't they? Yeah, so Behrman
Yeah.
was right up the back. They were just ahead of him, just behind Ocon. But we know that the team is kind of in transition. I think even looking at the team, the lack of partners that are actually on the livery and branding, we know how the future looks for these guys and where they're at. What are your hopes for them this season? I guess we really want them to be competitive, at least, don't we? We don't want anybody just getting constantly lapped, etc.
That's what it is. As a fan, that's all we want. Just like like you want them to be going for it. And you want, if like at very worst, you want like a new driver to get a chance. And that's what at least that's what we've got here. So yeah, I'm as much as they are down there and they finished down there last season, I do hope that they pull something out for this coming season, man.
Some good signings to the project, though. So Nico Hulkenberg coming in as an experienced Formula One driver, and Matteo Binotto as well, former Ferrari team principal. So they are investing ready for the future, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going for it. They're going for it. Again, another one where I think everybody in that garage is gonna know where they are. They're gonna understand what it is. I think the dynamic's gonna be cool. Hulkenberg, yeah, I'm quite excited to see some more of him. But because there was a point where I thought I wasn't sure. But yeah.
Yeah, he had a little bit of time out and then came back sporadically with Aston Martin. And then since he got that Haas seat, has really proved that he's deserved a place in F1 in the current field. I would definitely agree. So that's a kind of roundup there, Jay, of testing. I know we've not got long left. In fact, that is the hour. But I just want to jump into Drive to Survive in a minute and what you're looking forward to seeing. But before we do that, put your head on the line. If I had to say to you now, you've seen the teams out on circuit for the first time going wheel to wheel. Who would be your driver's champion and who's your constructor's champion for 2025?
I think Ferrari. I'm gonna go Ferrari for constructors champion. I'm gonna go for another championship for Max Verstappen as drivers champion. And I think the only reason that you're not going to see one of the Ferrari drivers as the champion is just because it is so tight between the two of them and they are both so good. That's what I think is going to be the problem. But good problem for Ferrari to have as a team.
So, with your crystal ball, then, what happened to McLaren amongst all of this?
Yeah, well, listen, I can't tell you. Like you put me on the spot and I'm telling you what comes to my mind.
No problems, man.
And
No
and, and
problems
I
at all.
think I think McLaren have got you can read from what I'm saying. I think McLaren have got different things to address, and nothing there is telling me anything dead set. It's too early for me to say Oscar for world champion, and I don't think I can sit here and say yes, it's Lando's this year. I just don't think I can, man.
Well, listen, Jay, I think something that might give us a good insight into the dynamics behind the scenes is going to be the new series of Drive to Survive, which drops this week, season 7. It's brought a new wave of fans to Formula One. It's rekindled the magic for some, including myself. I must say, all the drama behind the scenes made me think, you know what, I've really got to get back into it. I don't want to miss it. We know what the big stories were, right? The likes of Lewis going to Ferrari, Daniel Ricciardo dropping out, the first big wins for Lando and Oscar, and the general McLaren win. But are there any kind of out of the ordinary that you're looking forward to seeing, the storylines, or even in the big ones? What is it about the big ones that you want to know, Jay, that really went on?
I'd like to see how that relationship between George and Lewis went throughout the season
Mm.
because some stuff's been going on there. I'd like to see when you talk about the big stories, Lewis, the whole season has looked like he's trying to say something to us with his eyes, but in every interview, he's only allowed to say what he's. I don't know if you saw, but I posted something like that I said on the last episode of Race Talk F1, and I was saying it's like a scene from Get Out, the movie, if any of you've seen it.
I
And
saw
it's
that clip that you putting it up, yeah.
someone's trapped inside, and he's like, "I'm just not fast anymore." And he's like, I want to see more. I want to know what was going on. That's what I
Yeah,
want to know.
yeah, what we love about Drive to Survive, like they've usurped all the broadcasters. They really get a behind the scenes look. And you even see sometimes the principals and that forget they're there. And then they're like, no, not this bit. Turn the camera off. But yeah, it'll be nice to hear from Lewis, like you said, the development across the season, because as soon as he turns up, we know he's going Ferrari. How well is he getting on with everyone? I hope we're going to get possibly a true response. I've seen in the trailer that Toto Wolff, the little voice clip that they've used, it feels like we're going to get Toto's real response rather than the public one. And then how his weight within Mercedes diminishes across the season is going to be a really interesting story to watch, right?
Can't
Um,
wait.
and what about the other big signing then? Nui to Aston Martin, or at the very least, Nui leaving Red Bull was another big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like obviously there was loads of stuff was going on around Red Bull. In fact, I think this will be quite interesting because he's the big name, but there were loads of other people that left Red Bull around a similar time.
Mm.
So I think maybe some insight into what was going on over there. Like they had a wobble performance wise. Like Max wasn't doing it. They just couldn't get the car right. There was so much going on at Red Bull. Like that will be interesting. But then obviously there was so much speculation around where Nui was going, and it's like it will be interesting to see like but you just know like we're just gonna get a picture of Lawrence Stroll on his phone, like and fly in somewhere to go and make sure the deal happens. That bit I can just see.
Do you think there's any truth or weight in these rumors about Max Verstappen and somehow ending up in racing green at some point?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like you
I don't
said,
know.
man, money talks. Lawrence Stroll on the phone, just doing
That's
this.
That's what I was gonna say. Lawrence has got, but Max is an interesting character, man. I don't know. I don't know. Max is gonna go where he honestly believes he can win, but it could be there with Adrian Newey. So
So I said to you at the top of the show, what kind of viewer are you from testing, Jay? What kind of viewer are you for Drive to Survive? Are you day one marathon, or do you like to tease yourself a little bit with it? How do you work?
Bit by bit. I need to digest that, like bit by bit. I'll be watching that for the next few weeks, like bit by bit. Maybe next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I'll be
come
getting
on,
as
mate.
much down as possible.
You've got
But
to get it in before the Australian Grand Prix. You can't
with
still
this,
have 2024 to watch, and then we're on to the 25 season.
no, it's true. But I'm not a binge guy. I'm not sit there for 5 hours and go through it. So if anyone's there tweeting like the next morning about how what a great series it was, drop me out. Like I'll be like 2 episodes in at most.
Yeah, no spoilers, please, guys. Too early on Drive to Survive. But listen, Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up. If you're out there and
Likewise.
you don't follow Jay across the socials, make sure that you do at JAY KNOX and also at Race Talk F1. It's a great podcast that they've got as well. I'm hoping to get myself a little invite on it at some point, Jay, and we can
Are you
chew the fat.
sure you'll make an appearance at some point during the season, man? Come on.
Good man. But listen, you guys out there, thank you so much, not only for viewing this if you're watching it on record, but you guys in the chat box. It's been everything to engage with you guys. And remember, that's what makes us unique here at Fans Forum, is that we want you to engage as much as possible and drive the conversation. So make sure as well as that you spread the word, like this video, make sure you subscribe. We've got plenty of great stuff coming up across the 2025 season, more great VIP guests. And remember, there is less than 2 weeks away until the 2025 F1 season beginning in Australia. We'll be recapping the first race pretty soon after that. So we'll hope you'll join us and have a great evening. Once again, Jay, thanks for joining us. And you guys out there, have a good one.
Thanks for having me.